America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I am Elaine Parker and the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation, and it is great to be back with you all. I know that I have been gone for several weeks. I've been, it's one of those things where unfortunately personal stuff happens. There's good news and bad news. Unfortunately, I lost my father. And so I was dealing with all of those issues around that. He was 89 years young. We miss him terribly. And we are still, working through all those details with our family. 10 days later, my daughter got married. So super excited. So we went from the emotional whiplash there, but we ended on the positive note of my daughter getting married. And we of course believe that my father was there with us in spirit. So we're very excited about that. And it's great to be back. I appreciate my colleagues for stepping in and stepping up and having these great conversations. And I appreciate all of you for tuning in on a regular basis and listening to what we have to say about small business, because small business is the heartbeat of America. And today we are joined by Lauren Winans. She is the CEO and principal consultant of Next Level Benefits. She is an employee benefits expert with more than 20 years of experience. She's worked in HR leadership roles at many well-known brands, including General Nutrition Centers, which I love those stores. American Eagle Outfitters, love that store as well. My daughter works for Aerie part-time in college, and Consol Energy and many more. So Lauren, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Elaine. Really appreciate it.
I know we were saying we're kind of kindred spirits, before we came on air, because we're both so focused on small business. And, I'm on the policy side and working with small business owners, but you're on the benefit side and kind of seeing the landscape for small business from DEI to some of the remote work issues that we've, seen happen over the last 5 years as a result of COVID. We like to joke at Job Creators Network that we worked remote before it was cool to work remote, because we've always been remote. So, and AI, I'm paying attention to what's happening, but it's happening so fast. So I'd love to pick your brain, but let's start by just tell me about yourself and Next Level Benefits so that we all understand what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So, I'm an HR consultant. I'm a HR professional by trade. I did that for 20 plus years. And when I had the opportunity to start my own business, I took the leap. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Just didn't know how and in what way or shape that may take. And, after I fell into HR and blinked and 20 years went by, I decided, now is time to kind of start a business. And so when I started the consulting firm, almost 6 years ago now, we're mainly focused on helping HR teams and small businesses, executive leadership teams who might need interim or fractional HR support. Businesses that are large but might need some interim support because they have members who are out on a leave of absence or they have turnover. But we also work with clients that are small and medium sized who don't necessarily need a full-blown HR department, but they have a lot of needs that require some HR compliance and some expertise in that area. And so that's where we find ourselves creating our niche in the market. And, I think, from an interim and fractional standpoint, because of the variety of clients that we work with, we're able to see So many different, things take shape, like AI, changes to organizational structure, to changes to, diversity policies. All these different things are changing and evolving as we speak, and it's definitely something that's exciting to be kind of on the forefront of working with our clients every day.
Well, another way that we are kindred spirits is in my past life, which really just means early in my career, I worked in human resources as well. My degree is actually in human resources. And what I studied. And I initially went into recruiting, and I focused on recruiting and placing accounting and finance professionals within small, medium, and large companies. And then I moved into a more generalist position. So I got a little bit of taste of what a generalist does. That was so many years ago.
Yeah.
And I know HR has changed so much. Let's start talking about DEI. And I ask because I have a friend who still works in the industry in recruiting, staffing. And, she's a big believer in DEI, but she understands and acknowledges that the premise of it had great intentions, but that it has almost been co-opted or hijacked by, a faction that has taken it in a direction that obviously it's just come under attack. So can you speak to that and just the landscape of DEI in general?
Sure. I think, the spirit of DEI is, foundationally good. There's a desire to want to ensure equity across an organization and wanting diversity of thought, and leadership and, those sorts of, inclusionary thoughts and structure that you want to try to create within an organization and culture is really important. And a lot of different organizations were doing it in different ways. So there's more strict ways of doing it where you're looking for certain talent in certain ethnicities or genders. And then there's other ways to do it where you're incorporating using almost like a DEI lens in what you're doing within the organization, not necessarily based on quotas or numbers or analytics, but really around the premise and the spirit of including everyone's thoughts and opinions to make the best decision, and really creating equity across an organization. So because there was some differing standpoints on kind of like how each organization kind of approaches their version of DEI, and I think things kind of got off the rails, quite frankly, in a variety of ways. I think that from a one side of the coin, there might have been too much emphasis on numbers, right? We need X number of females in, this area of the organization, or we need, X number of minorities in this part of the organization. And I think that clouded the spirit and the essence of what DEI really is. And I think there's ultimately some learnings that we can make from all of this, but we certainly, don't want to unwind a lot of the efforts that have been done here, right? I think that, it's taking a step back from, preventing anyone who wants to have opportunity from getting it. I think let's step away from that. But let's find ways to create balance for DEI across an organization. Let's find ways to continue to include folks, to create equity, to manage diversity of thought in ways that are thoughtful and impactful, and maybe get rid of some of the practices that maybe aren't serving us anymore. As our world has evolved and as our businesses have evolved. It's a really tricky topic because, I think that there are a lot of people who agree that, doors really haven't been open for everyone. and the spirit of DEI is creating and opening doors. But I think what has happened is, as with anything, we kind of shift to one side versus the other and forget to kind of create the balance in betwin. And that is what I think, is the real issue here.
Yeah. The pendulum just, it swings and swings. I feel like I mean, do you think that DEI will survive even the good intentions part of it? Because, I mean, it really has taken on a different meaning. And of course, it is very negative in conservative circles,
Yes.
and not received well at all. And I actually watched a movie last year by, I think his name's Matt Walsh, called Am I Racist? And he did kind of a undercover movie. I mean, it was funny too, but showing what the DEI world had come to. Yeah. And again, it may be just factions. I don't know a lot about it. It wasn't around when I was in HR. So, but I know how much has been attacked. I'm not educated enough on it. So I thought it'd be great to talk to you about it. I mean, do you think it'll survive?
I do. I think it will survive, but I do think that it's going to take quite a hit in the meantime. And what I mean by that is there isn't a lot of clarity around what's not allowed. I mean, there is and there isn't, right? There's legislation out there. There's executive orders. Some things are clear cut. Other things are a little murky and gray. And I think that, as with any HR professional, we really like the black and white as much as we can get it from a compliance standpoint. And I think there is some confusion around, what is okay to continue doing in practice versus, what is something that might potentially be against the law someday very soon. And so, amongst the societal pressures to, want to, either toe a party line or, be as agreeable as possible to, to make sure that the talent that's coming your way is from both sides of the spectrum. I think that the DEI processes and policies and practices that might be in place today that are doing really great work that are truly in the spirit of, creating diversity and equity and inclusion, I think are at risk because a lot of us HR professionals are going to be scared to kind of continue doing certain things in certain ways, not knowing if it's going to be received well or if it's going to cause internal issues or concerns. So it's really a lot of tiptoeing right now. So I do think it's going to survive. But I do think that in the meantime, it's a recalibration of like, okay, what is going to continue to work? What is within the spirit of the intention versus what is maybe too far and getting in the way of, creating different levels of marginalized groups because of, our favoring, one area versus another within, our diversity practices. It's really going to be a lot of soul searching for each organization. And in the meantime, I think a lot of HR professionals and executive leadership teams are kind of, waiting with watchful eyes to kind of see what happens and how things go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, I think you could make that argument about a lot of things. My very good friend who, is a big believer in the DEI and works in that space. She's torn right now because she does see the extremes. She does see some aspects of it that have been hijacked. She still supports the underlying premise of it. Yeah. But she recognized, we've had some spirited conversations coming at it from different perspectives, but we respect each other's views, of course. So it's been interesting. Want to talk to you about AI. Where do you see AI with small business and where it's going and just an overall landscape look at it?
Yeah, it's so I mean, I'm sure today there's going to be a new AI tool on the market like as we speak, right? Mm-hmm. It's moving so quickly. And as much as I truly believe that this is going to be monumental in terms of the way it shapes our workforce and the work that we do. I do think that we're in this stage right now where the technology is advancing way faster than our ability to keep up with it, as well as our ability to integrate it into our businesses. And, it's all going to, shake itself out, right? But I do think that, the worry around AI replacing jobs is something that we have to put out of our mind in the immediate short term. That will occur, but not at the pace with which I think that we're all fearful of. I think that where we're at in this evolution of AI is really trying to focus on how do we leverage it to do our jobs better, to become, more profitable organizations. How do we leverage it as small business owners to enhance our output and our ability to accomplish our goals. And I think that really needs to be the focus right now. I think ultimately over time, each organization, each business, regardless if you're large or small, you're going to figure out, how best to incorporate AI and if and when that may replace, certain positions or roles within your organization, and you'll kind of leverage a tool to do the majority of the work. But I think in the interim, there's so many things that require, the human touch and human reasoning. And I just don't think that, those who are fearful that jobs are going to immediately dry up tomorrow, we don't need to be worried about that right now. I mean, my recommendation to all of our clients, as well as, to really anyone who asks me about AI is, focus on what it can do for you right now. And, as a small business owner myself, I use AI in a variety of ways. I use it for note taking during my meetings. I use it for building my PowerPoint decks, my slide decks. I use it for updating my headshot recently. I didn't want to pay the money to have my headshot updated, so I used a tool. I uploaded a bunch of images of myself, and it produced a headshot for less than $20. Awesome. So, as a small business owner, I'm always looking for ways to become more efficient and to, leverage my budget in ways that are going to be, beneficial to me. And, that is where I think from an AI perspective, where we need to be focused on right now. But we are on a roller coaster, and the coaster is going to go fast in some moments and slow in others. So we do need to be prepared long term what this looks like. But I think short term, think, over the next 1 to 3 years here, I think it's find ways to use the right tools that are going to be impactful for your organization. And don't necessarily worry about, is this going to replace me? Is this going to replace my job? Is this going to replace my employees? Because right now it's about, getting adjusted to this new world and how we're going to incorporate it into our workplaces.
That makes sense. It's crazy. I hate to admit this, but I actually used AI to help me write my toast to my daughter at the reception.
Sometimes you just need a starting point,
I mean, obviously it took the gist of what I was saying and just made it sound better. But it was really helpful. And then my other daughter used it for her toast as well. And we both sounded fantastic. So
yeah, there's no harm. There's no harm and no shame in using the tools that are out there. You just got to find, exactly in what way you want to interact with AI. And that's really what our task should be right now.
Yeah, for sure. What about the landscape on remote work? I see jobs out there all the time posted that say remote or hybrid. There are jobs in New York, but they want to they'll hire somebody all over the country. We currently have a social media manager who is in Kansas. Although I have employees all over the country, to be honest with you. But how is that changing things, and what do you see the future there for?
Yeah, I just, there are so many jobs that can easily be done remotely and don't require an in-person presence. But I think what we also need, again, balance, that word comes up again, in terms of, we really want to make sure that we don't sacrifice relationship building and, in-person connection. But at the same time, there's a lot of efficiencies to be had by leveraging a remote workforce, particularly when you're looking for certain skill sets. When all of us were, primarily working in, either corporate offices or specific geographic areas, it really kind of narrows the talent pool to what you have in that particular area, because you need someone to be on site every day. But when you open up the borders of what you're looking for in terms of, we can have this role be remote, it really does allow you to kind of source the right talent and the right fit for your organization. And so I think it's important to also kind of look at the balance between remote and in-person interaction. But at the same time, I think a lot of the businesses out there, a lot of the larger businesses that are like, in office is best, and we're trying to get away from remote work. I don't necessarily think that you can swipe a broad brush here. I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of leverage for organizations, regardless of size, to leverage a remote workforce in a way that is going to be efficient, but also finding ways to create relationships and to create, collaborative partnerships across the business. So from a remote standpoint, I see it probably staying, pretty similar in terms of its frequency right now. I know that there are larger organizations that are trying to bring everyone back to work, and in some cases they're failing miserably. So I don't think it's something that goes away anytime soon. But, I do think it's something that we all have to kind of keep an eye on. You don't want to be isolated from your coworkers and colleagues. You want the opportunity to shine in front of leadership when you have those moments. And it is important to find ways to interact and to be in person as much as possible. And I think that, Zoom is great, and Zoom has been very efficient for all of us to kind of get a lot of work done, right? But there is something to be said for, connecting with your colleagues, building relationships, and being able to accomplish goals and projects together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great point. Like I said, we've been virtual before it was cool to be virtual. So it's all I know, for the last 20 something years, really. So it's not new to me, and I don't have issues with being motivated and all of that, because it's what I know. I'm happy to leave the chores alone. Like, I can ignore them all day long.
Me too. I don't like doing them at any time of day, so I'm certainly not gonna leave my computer.
I'm not tempted by that load of laundry to not do my work. Trust me. Well, how can our audience find out more about your company and what you do, and how they might be able to utilize your services?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, you can check out our website. It's nlbenefits.com. NL standing for next level. So nlbenefits.com. My background primarily was in employee benefits administration for many years in corporate. So we kind of started out focused on benefits projects and then expanded into compensation work. But now we kind of manage all areas of HR. So my team is about 30 members strong. Everyone has a variety of expertise across all functions of HR. So, any sort of project, special project, or fractional support that you might need, interim support if you have, an open role on your team as it relates to HR. And even just from a small business perspective, if you're just looking for an advisor who can also tactically jump in and manage some things for you, we're the people to reach out to. Our website has a lot of great information, including case studies, bios for most of our consultants, as well as some press features, blogs, all of that. We try to keep people educated at the same time as helping them strengthen their bench as it relates to people issues. So you can find us there, and you can always email me too directly, Lauren at nlbenefits.com.
Great. That's nlbenefits.com if you're a small business or a medium-sized business, or a large business for that matter, and you're looking for help from Lauren's company. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to to sit with us on Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. And thank you all for taking the time to tune in, especially since I'm back today. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network, and new episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. So you can tune in on salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from, and we'll be back soon with another episode.